Friends, in our previous study, we explored a question that changes everything. Was the law ever actually meant to save humanity? And we discovered that the law was never designed to save. It was designed to reveal humanity's need for salvation. But now another major question rises to the surface. Why then were the 10 Commandments given? What purpose did they actually serve? And once we'll understand that, many difficult Bible passages suddenly begin making sense. From the very beginning, the 10 Commandments revealed something extraordinary about God: His holiness, His righteousness, His purity, His justice. The commandments showed humanity what God's character looked like expressed in moral form. The law was not evil. The law was holy. Romans chapter 7, verse 12 says, "The law is holy, and the commandment is holy, righteous, and good." The problem was never the law. The problem was fallen humanity standing before a perfect standard. The 10 Commandments functioned like a mirror. They exposed sin. They revealed what was broken inside humanity. Romans chapter 3, and looking at verse 20, it says, "Through the law comes the knowledge of sin." Commandments made sin visible. What humanity once ignored became undeniable under the light of God's holiness. The law did not create sin. The law exposed sin, and once sin was exposed, humanity's desperate need for salvation became clear. The 10 Commandments were given within the Old Covenant at Mount Sinai. This is extremely important to understand. The commandments were not floating independently outside covenant history. They belonged to a covenant system between God and Israel. Exodus chapter 34, verse 28 says, "And he wrote on the tablets the words of the covenant, the 10 Commandments." The commandments were covenant documents. They formed part of Israel's covenant relationship under the Old Covenant system. That covenant included blessings for obedience and judgment for disobedience. Once the commandments entered history, humanity could no longer claim ignorance before God. The law drew a bright line between holiness and rebellion. Paul says in Romans chapter 7, verse 7, "I would not have known what sin was, had it not been for the law." The commandments exposed coveting, idolatry, dishonor, murder, adultery, falsehood. Humanity's condition was now standing fully exposed before divine holiness. And the deeper people looked into the law, the more they realized how far they had fallen. The commandments revealed the terrifying beauty of God's holiness at Mount Sinai. There was thunder, smoke, fire, dark clouds, trumpet blasts. The mountain trembled before the presence of God. Exodus chapter 19 describes a scene filled with fear and awe. The law revealed that God is not casual about sin. He is perfectly holy. The commandments were never merely rules on stone. They were revelations of divine holiness, confronting fallen humanity. But the story did not end there. Galatians chapter 3, verse 24 says, "The law became our guardian to lead us to Christ." The commandments were preparing humanity for something greater. Every sacrifice, every failure, every priest, every offering, every moment of condemnation pointed beyond itself toward the coming Messiah. The law was functioning like a tutor, teaching humanity that salvation could never come through human performance. Humanity needed rescue. Humanity needed grace. This is why Paul says something shocking in 2 Corinthians chapter 3. He calls the ministry written on stone tablets the ministry of death. not because the law was evil, but because sinful humanity stood condemned before it. The commandments could reveal righteousness, but they could not produce righteousness inside fallen hearts. The law could command holiness, but it could not transform humanity from within. What was written externally on stone could not internally change the human heart. And this is exactly why the New Covenant becomes so important. The Ten Commandments cannot be understood properly apart from covenant context. Many people isolate the commandments from the covenant system they belong to. A scripture repeatedly connects them to the Old Covenant established at Sinai. The commandments were part of a larger covenant structure involving priests, sacrifices, ceremonial laws, washings, temple worship, and covenant blessings and curses. The law revealed God's holiness, but it also revealed humanity's inability to stand righteous before Him who performs alone. And that is where the beauty of Christ begins to shine even brighter. Because what the law could reveal, Christ would fulfill. What the law could expose, Christ would heal. What the law could demand, Christ would provide. And this leads directly into part 2 of our study. Because once we understand why the Ten Commandments were given, another massive question immediately follows. How do the Ten Commandments relate to believers today? Are Christians still under them in exactly the same way? Did anything change under the New Covenant? What did Jesus mean when He said He fulfilled the law? And why does this topic create so much debate across Christianity? In part 2, we are going to carefully explore one of the most misunderstood questions in the entire Bible. And once you see the bigger covenant picture, many difficult passages suddenly begin making sense. Friends, you do not want to miss part 2. See you in the next study. Bye.